I met your dad when my parents were Corps officers in Royal Oak, Michigan, and your grandparents had been transferred from, I think they were in Indianapolis, and then they were appointed to Detroit Citadel, which would have been like 12 miles from us
Mhm.
in Royal Oak. And that doesn't mean that we would do a lot of stuff together, except for the fact that your dad, your he played John played cornet, and I played euphonium. And even as a young kid, we would go down to Woodward Avenue in Detroit at Christmas time and play on kettles. And you just went down and worked for the youth department, basically the divisional youth department. So I didn't know this McLean guy. You know, they were in Detroit Citadel. I was in Roanoke, but we were assigned to a kettle together with a couple other guys, and we did that for years. And you'd be out for all day Saturdays from like 9 to 5 or something like that. You'd play for 45 minutes, and then you'd go and they made a deal with the Detroit Bank and Trust, and we got to go and use one of their offices to warm up, kind of thing. And then we go back out on the street again. But we might have had these books to play from, but with your dad and I, the books were kind of irrelevant. We did a lot of improv, but it was great fun. So I started out with John on the kettle because he's a couple years older than me, so he was the leader. And but we just had a ball out downtown Detroit, and then of course, growing up in the Salvation Army and in the same geographical area or division, as they would say, you're always thrown together for various divisional events, youth councils, and then camp. And I worked one summer at our Camp Echo Grove. And your father just loved being at camp. In fact, while he was out there, he wasn't John McLean. He was called Johnny Echo Grove.
And he was strong. And if I got in trouble, I remember I got arrested once, but I mean, I didn't do anything terrible, but I got arrested. And they put me at 16 in Cook County Jail. Who am I going to call? I can't call my parents because I'd rather be in jail than have my parents come get me. So I called John. He came down. I think he was in Michigan. He drove all the way down there to get me out of there. He did some kind of weaseling. I don't know how he did it, but he got me out of there. I had no charges. I didn't have to go. The only thing bad was I was there. So that's when I first met him at that camp setting. So that answers your question.
Well, I don't know exactly. He might have even bestowed it on himself because he was just, he just loved camp so much. And I enjoyed camp, but I could take it or leave it. I'd go to camp for music camp for a week, and after the week, I was ready to go home, kind of thing. But he just thrived out there. He just loved that stuff, and he really enjoyed being on the camp staff. And because the camp staff, you might be hired to do a particular job. I believe I was the assistant recreation director, which meant, among other things, you'd sit in a hut all afternoon and sign out badminton rackets to people and game things. And he was a lifeguard. He was up at the pool, but that might have been your job. But then you were also the evening program. And that's where you got incredible leadership experience.
I'm telling you, it was that one-on-one. No matter if I was in a crowd, he would come find me and he'd give me one of his bear hugs. And I was he was my hero. I had other people that I liked, but he was the most godly hero I had. In fact, my whole early life followed him. Like, I decided to join the military because of him.
Right.
And then when I got out of the military, he talked me going into this seminary. I don't even know how he talked me into it, but he talked me into going to this seminary.
So often, I should say, every evening, you were the program. So your dad was always in the midst of the skits, and the choruses and all the goofy stuff that you do, and all the goofy camp songs, you know, profound lyrics like "Skinnamarink Dinky Dink," you know, stuff like that. And John was always kind of the head leader. We just got in behind whatever he wanted to do. But he also did the dirty work too. I mean, my recollection of your dad was him driving like one of the big trucks in camp on what we call Camp Change Day. Camp Change Day was when you re-outfitted the camp to accommodate the families coming in the next week. So they might need 4 beds over here and 3 beds over there. In this cabin, you had to clean out, move that kind of stuff. And I just remember he'd be the guy driving the truck, but he'd also be the guy that would, with us, would be loading all these mattresses up on top of this thing. And then we'd ride on the top of all these mattresses while he'd be driving over all these hills and stuff to get stuff to the next cabin. But he was never afraid of the dirty work.
Even when I was in the military, I started making movies. I was actually, before I went in, and like high school, I started making homemade movies. You know, I did them for class projects. But then I started getting paid to make a movie for this camp that once, you know, I'd have a whole night program. And your dad, John, was always the hero in the movie. I had him as a samurai bandmaster that fought some kind of Darth Vader guy. I can't even remember, they were so stupid, but he would come no matter, I would set up all these scenes and he'd be working and he'd come and be part of these crazy little movies that I was making. But
he wasn't erratic or anything like that, but you're always on the alert. You know, even though you're no longer in the foxholes, you're no longer in the rice paddies, you're home, but your body is still on alert. And so, for example, he stayed in what we call the crow's nest. The crow's nest was above the swimming pool where he lifeguarded, but lifeguards had their rooms up there on the second floor. And he said to whoever was his roommate, he said, now, if you have to wake me up in the morning, don't touch me. Don't touch me. Just call my name. Just keep calling my name till I wake up. And this guy wasn't paying attention. And one day he came in and says, John, time to get up. And he was in deep sleep. And so he just, you know, how you nudge somebody on their shoulder, like, hey, John. And all of a sudden this hand went flying, just narrowly missed him, missed the guy, and put a hole in the cement block wall.
I'm telling you, I joined, so I told you, I joined the military. He wrote me a letter every week when I was in the military. A letter, not like a little note thing, but a letter asking me about my spiritual life, what I was doing. I still have them somewhere. Can you imagine somebody, he had a big time job. He was responsible for a lot of stuff. You know, he was having some other issues. He had the time to care about me. It influenced my whole life. I always did the same thing. I always took in young people, not just guys, over the years, because what he did for me.